Hey Dylan,
Hey Genesis, what's up? How you doing?
I am doing well. How are you?
Good. Great to see you again. Hope all's going well with the show.
Likewise. Yep, likewise. It has been a busy morning and a rainy day over here where I'm at, but the rain has stopped for now, which is good because it was like coming down super, super loud.
Now, let me ask you this. Where are you located? Because I got a question about the rain, how it works with me.
Texas.
You're in Texas. Okay. Okay. So I'm in Mississippi, right? So it is like getting very bad over here. Like they said,
Ooh.
they're like, there's gonna be tornado warnings and all this crap coming at the end of the day. And I'm like, okay. So I have to look at the news in order to schedule a podcast because I don't know if it's just where I'm at out in the country or where, but every time it rains, my internet is so shitty that it's not even funny. Like it's like it'll buffer, it'll do this, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm over it. So so is that kind of what it is over there for you, or is it just you just have the best shit ever?
Well, it was one day, not really with the rain, but when we have like high winds, sometimes that could affect the internet. Because when I was interviewing someone else who was in Texas, but she was further north in Texas,
Mhm.
like our internet connection was like just going back and forth when it gives you that little gray bar that says internet connection unstable. And I was like, oh my gosh, we cannot record like this, because it's like, okay, we're good for a solid 10 minutes, then bam, that happens. And then it kicked her off a few times, or then she was like, I was frozen on the screen, like, and I was
Right.
like, no. So yeah, with when high winds it does it, but with rain not so much, which is good.
Yeah. So do you record your podcast every day, or you taking days off?
So I record pretty much every day, Monday through Friday. My days off are the weekends.
That's correct. I love to see the difference between my podcast and someone else's podcast, because my podcast is you have a Calendly. I have to go in there and post things. You have to pay money. Mine's just like, hey, bro, you want to come on the pod? I mean, obviously, you act professional when you're reaching out to these people and you're like, I want to go do the podcast, yada, yada. Mine's just like, well, when are you free? And I look at my calendar. It's fun because I know that would not work for me, and I know it works for a lot of other people because I do live on a calendar and I do have my days where it's like, okay, if I'm recording for, if I have a podcast or whatever, I record for this long. But then it's like, okay, after the process, I have to go back, make sure it's all good, edit something out if the people says, because I'm gonna fucking forget. It's but I just love different people's scheduling and the way they do a podcast.
Yeah, and I do respect yours, because I know that you edit your podcast, right? Because
I don't like, we're talking right now. I'm not going to edit any of this out, but like some people do say certain things and then at the end they're like, "Hey, just take that out." I don't edit like conversation. I will edit out if there's like a long pause, or if there is uh if the audio is like kind of wavy back and forth. Like for me, Zoom was a godsend for me because Skype would like malfunction my mic. Skype. I say this right now. Skype is a terrible platform to record podcast on. I hate it. So, and people are like, I use Skype. I don't use Zoom. I'm like, well, bro, you're just going to have to call in because I'm not. Because you use Skype and it'll make you sound so muffled, like you're not even talking into the mic. It's terrible.
yeah, I haven't used Skype at all, but we used to use it for like business when I was in the corporate field. And then whenever I started my podcast, all it was like Zoom. And then when I go on to guest appear, I know some of my other podcasters, they use Riverside FM or StreamYard. And I like StreamYard, but I'm just not going to pay for that. And Squadcast, because I'm like, you know what? if I had to pay for it and the number of podcast episodes that I do during the day, it just didn't make sense. So I was like, maybe later on down the road. But right now, Zoom works for me.
Well, see, StreamYard is different than Zoom because Zoom is free. Obviously, StreamYard you have to pay for, but even if your guests are coming on StreamYard, they have to pay for StreamYard as well. So it's like, if they don't have it, I'm not going to make them go and pay for it. Like it's because I was looking into it. I was like, it's not that much. It's what, $25, whatever a month, something like that. I was like, yeah, I could do it. But then when I realized that every guest had to have a StreamYard subscription, I was like,
No, you don't.
you sure about that?
Yeah, like I've been on StreamYard as a guest and I have never
Okay.
paid for it, because if I did, I would be like, oh no.
Okay. Well, consider me wrong then. Sometimes I am wrong on these things. But so we'll get into your podcast here in a little bit. I just want to know kind of a little bit about you for the short time that we have. What are you watching currently on like streaming platforms, cable, whatever you got? Have you watched anything interesting lately?
So on Netflix, we're a big Netflix because we actually cut off our cable because it just didn't make sense anymore for us. So on Netflix, we watch the series Working Moms, which is really cool because it really depicts what us working mothers go through. Then the other one was Good Girls with Manny Montana, and there's like three ladies who ended up getting into like the drug scheme, and so they want to get out, but then they're in so deep now that there's not a way out, and they're like making counterfeit money. They're giving that money to the drug dealers and stuff. Then I watched another series, which I think I watched it in like a day and a half, Inventing Anna, which is a pretty much based on a true story. That was pretty good. And she was just scamming people, and she obviously thought there was nothing wrong with what she was doing. And she, up to this day, does not believe she's a criminal, and she believes that everything she did was goodwill.
I
And then what else? And I think that is about it off the top of my head, because there's quite a bit that I watch, and I try to do it like on the weekend, so I'm like productive during the week.
right. I am I use Netflix probably
Uh-oh.
oh, there we go.
Yeah, you were frozen for a
Okay,
bit.
there we go. I use Netflix probably more than the other ones, but I'm not like go straight to Netflix. I'm just saying what I wish they could invent, and I know they have like Apple TVs to do this, but I'm not paying $2,000 for a TV. They could create this little system and you stick it in your TV or whatever, maybe like a Amazon Fire Stick, and it like shows you everything playing on all the subscription platforms you have. Because they'd be like, okay, let's watch a show. Then you go through Netflix for about 45 minutes and you're like, nah, they ain't got no here. Let's go over to HBO. It's that stuff. But I started Inventing Anna, like probably when it first come out, I think. It was so unbelievable that I didn't know if it was fake or real. So I was like, you know what? I stopped 20 minutes in and I was like, I'm just going to stop for like 2 minutes because I don't know what's real, what's fake. And the show was just like, she was doing so much stuff that you didn't know what was believable,
Mhm. Oh, speaking of that, there's another show, if you haven't watched it, it's pretty good. Manifest, where the plane goes missing for 5 years.
It was good the first 4 episodes, and then it just kind of got too fucking weird for me. And I was like, I don't even know what's happening, and I'm paying attention the whole 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, we watched was not my choice, and this was a god awful show on Netflix. It's called Is It Cake? It's about these.
I saw that. I just finished that. There's
Oh
only
my,
one season right now.
it
I
is
liked it.
it is so bad. It is so bad. So for people
You
that
didn't
don't
like
know,
it?
you know what it is, Jesus. But for people that don't know, it's basically this. Netflix took this TikTok craze of, oh, is this a real item or is it cake? And they made it into a cake baking show. I'm pretty much just what it is. Let me tell you something. I love Saturday Night Live. I love comedy, but that Mikey Day, he was a little too much for me. Like I thought his hosting job was kind of not comical when he was trying to make it comical.
I don't really know too much about my Mikey Day, but I just know like the cakes, and I think it's pretty interesting to have like realistic cakes, and then you're over there like, wait, is that really a cake or not? And then you like have to really pay attention to the details. And I guess I'm biased because my husband is a chef. He's not a pastry chef, which is totally different, but it's really interesting. And I love cakes, especially like whenever we do my nieces or nephews' birthday parties, there are some really glamorous cakes. And depending on what type of cake you want, it will cost you. And there are some cakes that are like demi cakes, meaning like they have styrofoam in it. So it's like cake, styrofoam cake, just for the aesthetics. And it's so costly. Like when I was looking at wedding cakes, I was like, no ham, no cheese, no turkey. I am not paying for that. And my husband's like, we are not paying for that. And he had to like quickly help me scale back real quick what my expectations were. And then one of my good girlfriends who was working in oil and gas with me, she made cakes on the side. So she actually made my wedding cake based on this picture I gave her. And it was thebomb.com for like not even as costly as some of the other ones I saw out there in the market.
So you said your husband's a chef, did he go to like actual school to be a chef, or is he just considered a chef? Because I consider
No,
myself a damn chef, and I didn't go to school.
he went to college. He went to culinary school.
Oh, man. I bet he can just make the most delicious food though, right?
Yes, but sometimes he gets burnt out, like because if he's been cooking all day, he doesn't want to come home and cook too, like some days.
Uh-huh.
So like I'm learning and I'm being, so I could be self-sufficient. So of course I could feed our kids, not fast food, but something, substance. So we've been working on different things. So it's cool, and he'll be changing careers soon, because what people don't realize is that chefs spend a lot of times away from home, like weekends, because that's peak time. People love to go out on the weekends, and they work long hours and late nights,
Oh
and
my
that's not
God.
really
Yeah.
conducive.
No, it's crazy. I was a cook at a kitchen one time, and I was working, I mean, probably 50 hours a week, and it was killer. Like it was like, okay, somebody's not coming in, you have to pull a double shift, you leave, you're getting fired. Like it was like that demanding. And I was like, you know what? Screw this. I don't know how Gordon Ramsay put up with all them bastards, but I'm not doing it.
Oh man, I love it. And we loved it so much when we were in Vegas. We actually went to visit Hell's Kitchen, and my husband actually had the pleasure of working with Chef Janelle Witt,
Oh
who
yeah.
was who won one of the series on Hell's Kitchen, and it was just so cool. And I'm actually like pitching to her to come on my podcast because I would love to interview her.
Oh damn. I have seen every Gordon Ramsay show that he's ever created. I mean, to me, here's how I look at it. Like, and I want to know, is your husband kind of the Gordon Ramsay's kind of this fancy-esque chef, right? And then you look at people like, I don't know, like Gordon Ramsay, Guy Fieri, and people like that, and they're just like so balanced. And they're just like, I love to cook hamburgers and French fries and just all this junk food. So which is kind of your husband?
He's a mix of both, because I like both. I like my fancy palate, and then every now and then I just want a sloppy burger loaded with cheese and like fully loaded with some good old fries. And they have to be real good fries. I don't want them too thin and I don't want them too thick. I want them just right.
Oh yeah. When you're doing your show, kind of, do you only go based on what the guest gives you. So like, I'm just going from my experience. When you asked for me to be on your show, you gave me this form to fill out, and it was like information. So are you just solely going on that to lead the conversation?
So what I do is on that form, I ask for the bio, I ask for what their niche areas are, their relevant links, and etc. So based on their niche areas, I'll pick a topic for us to dive into for 30 minutes. And then all of my questions are organic. So I never send questions beforehand. And I ask questions that, number one, like someone who's not in their field is eager to know, because by asking those questions, my listeners and viewers are learning along with me, because I don't want someone to give me a scripted answer that they've rehearsed over and over. I actually want to go beyond the surface level with my guests. And I think that when you listen to my podcast, every segment is different and none of the questions sound the same, because who wants to listen to something repeatedly, unless you actually love that subject matter. So I
See,
hope that answers your question.
no, it does. And I got a lot of hate, not from I don't know if it was from your audience, but a lot from my audience, because on your show I'd mentioned that not everybody should have a podcast. And they thought I was
Mhm.
being negative, when in actuality, what I'm saying is, and you can join in on this too, Genesis, is
Mhm.
everybody has the same idea for a podcast. They want to do a Joe Rogan style bullcrap talk. There are millions of podcasts that do that, the same thing. So it's like, what are you going to talk about different that they're not going to talk about? Probably nothing, because there's infinity amount of things you can talk about, but you're going to talk about the things that are in the news. Will Smith pimp slapping Chris Rock. I'm sure everybody on the podcast has talked about that at some point. But then it's like,
Haven't.
I haven't either, because I haven't had a podcast since then. but my whole point was, if you're going to have a podcast, you need to have something that is either been done before and you're doing it in a different way, or hasn't been done at all and you're trying to regenerate it. Because if you're just going to get on the podcast and just BS and talk around, it's going to be hard.
Yeah, so I pretty much like to pick topics that are different, that complement my core pillars, which are to educate, inspire, and motivate. And I'm the first person to say that I'm not trying to be the next Joe Rogan. I'm not trying to be the next podcaster who is out there doing things, because if so, then I'm taking on their style and persona. I want to be Genesis Amaris Kemp, and I want people to remember Gems for its individuality. I want people to remember it by, oh man, I listened to this segment and it just cracked me the hell up. Genesis was going ham. She was laughing. Her guest was vibing. And I want people to know, like, whenever I tune in to Gem's podcast, I know I'm going to get something different each time.
Right.
And I'm going to walk away with some substance. I'm going to walk away with something that is either going to educate me to go research the subject. It's either going to inspire me to innovate something or think about a different way of doing things than I'm doing right now, or it's going to motivate me to get outside of my comfort zone, whether it's via personal development or professional development.
Right. And that's what makes yours so different and so oddly, and I'm going to say this, man, so like oddly satisfying, I guess you could say, because it's like, you're not a motivate or a professional motivational speaker. You're not, you know what I mean? Like, you're not these things that a lot of people claim to be, but you are doing like a motivational type podcast, which I think is cool, because you're doing it from an outsider's perspective in. If that makes
And some
sense.
people do. It does make sense. And some people will call me like a motivational speaker, because a lot of things that I've said and done, whether it's me guest appearing on over 440 podcasts or me having almost 330 episodes on my own podcast, they hear the motivation based on the life lessons that I've went through, whether it's me talking about grief and getting real and raw, or me talking about, medical negligence, or whatever the case may be. Like, that is motivating and inspiring because, some people are like, oh, she's like an average person. She's not a celebrity, but she's giving us real substance out there. And I think people want to connect with someone like that versus like some of these motivational speakers who are out here, but you can't even like get close to them unless you pay thousands of dollars to be in the same place with them.
Yeah. Do you like it or dislike when someone comes on your show and they're smarter than you and they like overtake the show by how smart they are?
Um, there's definitely a balance, and I do like my process. I do vet the people that come on my show because I do want someone that is smarter than me because I could learn from that individual and I could teach them something too. But then as far as taking over my show, I do let them know that this is going to be conversational style where we're engaging together, not you coming on my show and hijacking it. Because if that's the case, then I'm going to have to slot you in with another segment that I do, which is a sponsorship. If you want to talk about you and your brand all day long, you're going to have to pay for that because then I am promoting who you are and what your brand is. And I do charge for that. And I have a price structure for that.
I started that recently as well. Not, I don't charge for people to come on just because I don't want the hassle of me doing it and whatever. But I have started to charge when they come to me and they're like, hey, I want to do a show and I want to talk about whatever it may be. And I'm like, cool, but here's the deal. You're going to have to pay because if you want on as bad as you, and this is going to make me sound like a dick. I know, but it's like, if you want to come on the show and strictly talk about an album, like I'll have people come out and just like, I don't want to talk nothing but this 10-track album I have coming out. And I'm like, okay, fine. Here's the price. Sometimes you're like, okay, because it's like, if I get somebody on for an hour, I'm not going to talk about your music specifically for an hour. I will talk about your life from the time you were born to now. That's different. But I'm not going to talk strictly a 10-track album for over an hour. That's fucking brutal for me. I would kill myself if I did that. No way.
Yeah.
So
I'm just over here. I'm just speechless because like some people are very bold and they'll come to you with that angle and just tell you, I want to do this. And that may not necessarily complement what your core pillars are, because I know my podcast has core pillars, which I mentioned are to educate, inspire, and motivate, all while intersecting and bridging the gap for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And if it doesn't go with that, then you have to pay to play, because if you go and pitch some of these radio shows, you're paying for airtime and etc. So why not give me the same respect that you would give someone else? And when you look at the metrics, my podcast it moved up in ranking today. It went from the top 5% to the top 3% globally.
So what are you doing to promote this podcast and get it to the top 3% globally? What are you doing that, like, let's just say somebody that has 100 episodes and they're like barely getting an audience?
So there's not really any rhyme or reason to what I'm doing. I promote on various social media platforms. I do connect with business people because I came from the business field. I spent 15 years in corporate America, 12 were spent in the oil and gas and energy sector. So I am very business minded and very structured when I come to how I delegate and how I handle some of the people that come on my show. So I want someone of the same caliber who takes it as serious as I do. So if you're coming on my show, the main reason is so you could get your content out there, but also we need to cross pollinate and cross promote. So I tell my guests, make sure you promote this segment on your platforms. So I'm getting able to tap into their community just like they're tapping into mine. And I think when both of us promote, it's expanding the reach. And I think when more people listen to it, that's what also drives up the metrics.
Yeah. I want to ask a question so off topic. How long does it take to do your hair when you go to a salon? Like, cause it's like all braided and it's long. How long does that usually take?
So this style, because I my hair is naturally curly, it took about 5 hours to do it. And I actually went to my friend's house. She's a nurse, so she does it like on the side.
Let me tell you why that fascinates me so much. I watched Chris Rock's documentary Good Hair about African Americans' hair, where it like originated from. And that shit has fascinated me for so long. Like I have one of my dearest friends, Shy. I'll ask her all these questions. I'm like, so why is it why do black people sleep with like a certain type of pillowcase or something like that? And it's just so out of curiosity that it's just, and then you'll learn it, and then I will, like a velvet pillowcase, whatever, then I will go and research it. And it's like, I am the type of person that is so, if you're gonna,
Uh-huh.
if you want to spend a couple of hours with me, I will bore the shit out of you, because here's what I do. I will learn something. I will look for it forever until I get tired of looking at it. We'll write down 6 pages of notes about the thing, and then we'll sit there and study it until I know what it is. It's
Oh man, that's kind of funny that you ask, because like some people are like, "Is that your real hair or not?" And I'm like, "Well, half of it is my real hair, and the other half is not, and it's just easier to wear this." But if you look on my Instagram, for people who follow me, they'll see me with like my naturally curly hair, or sometimes I'll wear it straight, and they're like, "Do you put chemicals?" And I'm like, "No, I blow dry it straight." I don't always blow dry it straight myself. I pay my other friend who's Dominican, and I go to her house because her business is actually in her house. She has like the front room is her salon, and she'll do it. And I like doing that because it doesn't damage my hair without putting all those chemicals and junk in, which over time those chemicals get inside of your system and could cause, problems later on down the road.
you know what's crazy for me, the difference between black, like black wigs and white people's wigs, are the black people's wigs look so much like normal hair that you can kind of tell when a white person is wearing a wig versus when a black person, and they just take the wig off. I'm like, that was fake. Holy shit, what am I looking at? Now, let me ask you this. Why is that? Why do African American women in general prefer to wear wigs than their natural hair?
That I cannot speak on because
Okay.
I don't necessarily wear wigs, and I really like the whole natural aspect, because
Yeah.
even though I have naturally curly hair, my hair is like a different type of textures because I am Afro Latina. So my
Okay.
dad was from Curacao, so off the tip of Venezuela, and my mom is West Indian, so she's Caribbean. So my texture is a little bit different, and I could wear it
Mm,
curly or I could wear it straight. And when I do wear it straight, it looks like it's chemically processed. And other
got you.
people who have a different texture of hair, they may not necessarily like their texture of their hair, or it may be difficult to wear it in its natural form or etc. But I think it's personal choice, and everyone has their reason for doing things a certain way. And they may be on a hustle and go, like some of my friends who do wear weaves, they have these corporate jobs and they don't have time to wake up and do their hair every morning. So it's just easier to, get a quick weave or put some extensions in and just like, style it in the morning and go. And of course they do wash their hair, but it's just different. And that's as much as I can say about that.
Well, look, last question for you, as we're kind of drawing short on time here. Where did the name Gems come from for the podcast? And is it like an abbreviation for words, or how did it come about?
So gems came about with me thinking about diamonds and the pressures that diamonds go through. Um, because if you never, go through pressure in life and you never go through those hard seasons, then you won't appreciate the gems that you get at the end, or you won't appreciate the palace. So I believe that we all have gems to share, whether it's talking about our struggles that we turned into successes, or talk about the failures that we've overcame and etc. And that's really why I said, oh, I want to call it gems. And then the G is like, oh, G with G, because like Genesis begins with the G, gems is that. And I thought about in my life some of the things that I had to go through that, was under pressure, but then I still came out on top.
Well, that was you put more thought in that name than I did in mine. So Genesis, look, I appreciate the 40 minutes we've been on here. Why don't you go ahead and promote anything and everything that you got going on? Take as much time as you need.
Okie dokie. So for those of you listening, I am Miss Genesis Amaris Kemp. I am an author, visionary life coach, and motivational speaker. Some call me. And this is my book. It's called Chocolate Drop in Corporate America, From the Pit to the Palace. So it's on Amazon and some of the major brick and mortar stores around town, and you can get it online. There are 2 editions. The first edition is only available via Kindle, and the second edition has most of the relevant info, which is only available via paperback. So the hard copy on Amazon. I do a radio show that I do monthly, of course, running my podcast, and then some of the other speaking engagements for anyone who's interested in having me out, whether it's face-to-face or virtually. All of my contact information is on my website, which is Genesis, that's Genesis, Amaris, Amaris, last name Kemp, KEMP.net. And for those of you on social media, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Genesis Amaris Kemp, or Twitter at Genesis A Kemp. That's where I primarily hang out, or just shoot me an email, which is gems with Genesis Amaris Kemp at gmail.com. And then if you go to my website, you will get some freebies for tuning in. So one is the first chapter of my book for free. So you kind of get a little taste of my writing twang and swag. And then for those of you health and fitness nuts like I am, there is a health assessment. So you could really get to look at where you are health wise and see if there's any improvements that you can make to really have that longevity and sustainability. And there is a free health product, and that is found under the features and merchandise section on my website.
I will put all of that in the description box below on the podcast. Genesis, I thank you for coming on here.
Thank you, Dylan.